Advanced meditation functions as a structural intervention into the brain's predictive architecture, distinct from the cognitive effects of simple relaxation. To map this process, we rely on the framework of computational neurophenomenology, specifically the theory of active inference. Active inference posits that the brain does not passively record reality. It functions as a top-down generator of hypotheses, constantly guessing the hidden causes of sensory inputs. Within this model, psychological suffering and emotional disorders are understood as false inferences, habitual, distorted interpretations of internal and external signals. When these internal generative models become rigidly locked, the brain continuously anticipates future dyshomeostatic conditions. This results in the hyperreactive states that characterize persistent pain and anxiety. Ancient Vipassana meditation techniques target this predictive engine. They are designed to systematically dismantle the specific computational processes that lock the system into suffering. Viewing the mind through this lens suggests that suffering is not an inescapable state, but an algorithmic error that can be identified and updated. To update the system, we must examine its structural architecture, the Hierarchical Generative Model, or HGM. The lowest levels of this hierarchy process concrete, immediate sensory data. These raw inputs flow upward as bottom-up prediction errors. The highest levels manage abstract, temporally deep constructs, such as narrative identity. These generate top-down priors, our deep-seated expectations about reality. These levels are in constant conflict. Top-down priors continuously filter and suppress raw sensory data to maintain the coherence of our existing worldview. This multi-tiered prediction machine maps abstract concepts onto physical neural pathways. Sensory data pushes up, while conceptual models push down. Under normal conditions, these high-level conceptual nodes dominate. They issue downward pulses that block raw sensation, enforcing rigid behavioral routines based on past conditions. We do not experience the objective world directly, but rather our model's dominant best guess. This makes the hierarchy itself the primary target for meditative intervention. The meditator initiates intervention through deliberate, sustained attention to the breath or specific bodily sensations. In computational terms, attention is precision weighting. It acts as a gain control, determining the degree of confidence the brain assigns to a specific signal. This graphic demonstrates how prior precision alters perception. At the top, high prior precision engages upper hierarchical levels, causing you to perceive a generic category, like a tree. Below, releasing that precision decreases abstraction, resulting in a vivid, granular experience of raw sensory detail. By locking this precision dial onto interoceptive signals, like the mechanics of the breath, the practitioner overrides default conceptual thinking. This shifts the brain away from pragmatic active inference, acting to change the environment, and into pure epistemic inference, where the system simply gathers information to update its internal model. This sustained non-action starves high-level reactive policies of their predictive power, preparing the mind for the process of defabrication. One specific intervention is Vipassana scanning, the practice of systematic, symmetrical body sweeping. This practice activates the salience network and the right anterior insula, cortical regions responsible for interoceptive awareness. Continuous scanning acts as a sweep of precision across somatosensory nodes. This pulls processing resources away from the default mode network's midline structures, which handle self-referential thought. This technique mathematically optimizes the brain's precision weighting onto raw, lower-level somatosensory data. The result of this sensory optimization is a phenomenological state known as bhanga, or bodily dissolution. During bhanga, top-down structural boundaries collapse. The practitioner no longer perceives the body as a solid object, but as a shimmering flux of microscopic vibrations. By optimizing raw sensory data over conceptual priors, the brain lacks the predictive evidence required to maintain the illusion of a solid, permanent body. A second intervention is Vipassana noting, the practice of applying neutral linguistic labels, such as thinking or itching, to phenomena as they arise. While scanning works with the body, noting intervenes directly at the most abstract conceptual layer of the HGM. It facilitates opacification. Normally, thoughts are transparent. We look through them to view the world. Noting makes those thoughts opaque, turning the construction process itself into an object of observation. This linguistic intervention targets the default mode network, specifically the functional coupling between the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. Noting labeling acts as a computational roadblock. It decouples these regions and prevents the formation of a self-referential narrative. This practice differentiates between the identified with self, the narrative ego, and the organismic self, the functional agency that remains intact. Noting allows the highest predictive centers to observe their own construction process in real time, mathematically breaking the identification with a centralized me. The systemic result of both scanning and noting is defabrication, modeled as a downward sampling cascade. This schematic depicts perception during temporary deconstruction. Looking at the right panel, note the empty upper circle, representing the absence of high-level conceptual beliefs. Contrast this with the filled lower circles, where raw, unfiltered data is suddenly unmasked. Normally, a collapse of high-level predictive priors causes massive entropy, typically triggering autonomic panic. However, because Vipassana pairs this deconstruction with intensely stabilized, high-precision sensory data, the brain achieves profound equanimity and bliss instead of terror. EEG and fMRI studies of long-term practitioners show quantifiable shifts in neural efficiency, including elevated gamma band oscillations and reduced midfrontal theta activity. These markers reflect a state of highly ordered consciousness operating without a centralized narrative self. Advanced Vipassana functions as a specific mental action, separate from both dissociative states and simple relaxation. It is a voluntary algorithmic intervention designed to systematically dismantle rigid narrative priors generating psychological suffering. By modulating our predictive engines, we access the raw data of experience, offering a mathematically validated pathway to address the computational mechanics of human suffering.